Curry. High court drama in the George Zimmerman trial. You know, there's a lot at stake right now. The defense is trying to prove that Zimmerman acted in self-defense. Prosecutors say, though, that he is a cold-blooded killer. HLN social commentator Jason Johnson joins us again today. Week 2 of the trial, as you know, starts tomorrow. You're watching this closely, too. You've been talking with a lot of people and hearing from people on social media and also on the street there in Sanford, Florida. What's everyone saying about this?
Well, I think everyone is unfortunately reacting to this trial like it's a football game, and it's not. This is not quarters. You can't really determine who's going to win or lose. It is a long process. None of us know what the jurors are thinking. So I don't believe that there's one witness, whether it was John Good, whether it's Rachel Jeantel, who can win or lose this case for either side. We got to see the whole process play out.
And watching the testimony this week, I don't know about you, but there was a whole lot of just surprises in there and a lot of shocking things that came out. And then this one thing, first I wasn't sure what he was doing, but during opening statements, I don't know if you caught it, but defense attorney Don West started telling a joke. Listen for yourself.
Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing? That's funny. No more bad jokes, I promise that. I'm convinced it was the delivery, though.
Okay, so he thought it was funny. What was your take on that? I mean,
awful.
I've never seen this in court before.
That was absolutely awful. And this is what I'm saying about not being able to predict the entire trial by one particular instance. Because if we were making those judgments, the defense lost that day. You're starting a murder trial for a 17-year-old kid. George Zimmerman's life is on the line here, and you're starting with knock-up jokes. But, you know, here's what we learned also about Don West. It was later on this week that his daughter was sending pictures on Instagram talking about how they had outsmarted the dumb Rachel Jeantel. So,
Celebration ice cream cones, that fellow picture.
Exactly. So it's pretty clear this is a guy who's pretty tone deaf. But again, the trial has to go through. We don't know if he can win or lose it for him.
And a lot of people were also talking about Rachel Jeantel, one of the prosecution's witnesses. They were saying she was rude, she was feisty. They were even talking about her weight, which really surprised me. Of course, she was the one who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin right before he died. Here's some of her testimony. Look.
I had told you. You listening?
Yes, ma'am.
I had told you what happened to me in Crump interview. I had rush on it. Are you listening?
One more time, I'm sorry, I was distracted. You told me what?
I had told you during the interview between me and Crump, I had rush on it. And before that interview, I had told the mom if the officer want to talk to me, they could talk to me to know exactly what happened. And I had told you that on the depot.
Okay, so, I mean, it was compelling television, that's for sure. But, I mean, having attitude like that, is that something you do in the courtroom? And are we focusing too much on her delivery? Should we be listening to what she's saying more?
You know, what was happening with Rachel Jeantel and a lot of the social media reaction is the same problem that led to this case to begin with, which is profiling. Some people saw her like, oh, she's a plus-size, dark-skinned black girl with a bad accent, so of course she can't be reliable. Doesn't make any difference. That's not the assessment that you're supposed to be making, either as a viewer and certainly not as a juror. So, you know, was she rude from time to time? Yeah, but your reaction to it, as I wrote for HLN, you know, if you've got a high school kid, maybe that doesn't seem so strange to you, you know, and so I think a lot of people had an emotional reaction to her, had nothing to do with the content of what she was actually saying.
It shocks me, too, some of the words that were coming out in court. I mean, but she didn't flinch at anything, you know, some of the things, like, I'm not even going to say them again, because I don't use that kind of language. But it surprised me. I'm curious, the jury, how do you think they might be reacting to her testimony?
You know, it's hard to tell, because we can play sort of demographic games, right? Okay, so the jury, it's 5 white women, so maybe they have some assessment because she's African-American, but also a lot of them are parents. And we don't know what class level they're at, and we don't know who they interact with and socialize with. I think, in all honesty, the language, whether it was the creepy cracker comment or whether it was the N-word comments or anything else like that, this is not uncommon language. We like to pretend that people don't talk that way, but some people do. And so I don't necessarily think that that's something that harmed the prosecution. It really just depends on how the jury thinks, if that reflects her authenticity or if that reflects some sort of hostility on her or Trayvon's part.
Yeah, you got to wonder if it's authenticity. If the jurors are seeing it that way, it makes her more credible to them. Jason Johnson, as always, boy, we could talk all day about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Obama will pay tribute to Nelson Mandela.